Welcome back. Rob Port sitting in for Scott Hennon, having a great time today. 855-200-1776 is how you reach the program if you want to comment, or you can email me, rob@sayanythingblog.com. On with me right now, we've been talking a little bit about DUI laws in North Dakota, and obviously there's been a number of proposals put out on the table. And one of them that was just announced yesterday and has the backing of Attorney General Wayne Stenhjem as well as Governor Jack Dalrymple is coming from State Representative Kim Koppelman. Representative Koppelman, welcome to the program. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Rob. Good to be with you.
Give us I guess a summary of what you're proposing.
Sure. Well, there are several pieces to the puzzle. What we've heard from most folks, and maybe I should give you a little background first. I really began working on this several months ago to try to find a solution. I think most people agree on this point, and that is that drunk driving is a big problem in North Dakota that needs to be addressed. The question is, how do we address it? And so, before I even get into the specifics of the bill we're proposing, I think the important thing to recognize is I'm a firm believer that this has to be a cultural change, an attitudinal change, far more than any law change can accomplish. So we can get into more detail on that later. But so with that in mind, I began talking several months ago with law enforcement officials, with prosecutors, people that deal with this issue on the ground every day, and talking with them about what they think works, what doesn't work, what needs to change. I didn't agree with everything they said, but I did pick up some of those ideas. Talked with the Attorney General, talked with judges, talked with the Governor. The Governor was interested in doing something also, so I said, let's work together, and we came up with this as a first step in this proposal. And as you know, during the legislative process, sometimes things change. I don't know if this will be the final legislation, if this bill does pass, if it's going to be tweaked during the session. I'm already hearing from people with different ideas and so on, so we'll see. But the way the bill is laid out right now, we don't actually change the level of offense for the first-time offender, for the first DUI. It's still a Class B misdemeanor, but the penalty does change. And the fine is higher. It's $750. And the jail sentence allowed is the same, 30 days. But the difference is we are, under this proposal, 4 days would be required to be served. In other words, the judge could not suspend the entire sentence. And the reason people, everybody that I've talked to seems to feel that's important is that if we get people's attention the first time this occurs, I think we can make a difference long term. And I think the thing that struck me is, we have a culture in North Dakota, and I grew up here. I've lived here all my life. I love our state. I think we've got the best people in the world. And so, I understand, I think, how North Dakotans think pretty well. And the problem is, if somebody gets a DUI, the reaction is either a wink and a nod, or it's a, phew, gee, I'm glad it wasn't me that got caught. And then when a drunk driver kills people, we're all outraged. And, those dots just don't connect. We have to figure out a way to convince one another that drinking and driving is really unacceptable. And can a law in and of itself do that? No. But can it be a piece of the puzzle that helps bring about that change and save a lot of lives and make us all safer? I think so. I hope so. So anyway, that's the first offense. Second offense, it would be a $1,500 fine and 60 days potential, but at least 10 days would actually be served, and that would be a Class A misdemeanor. And then on the third offense, it would become a felony, a Class C felony. $2,000 fine, potential 5-year sentence, but as you know, most of those a lot of times get suspended, so there it would be a minimum of serving at least 60 days, and it goes up from there, fourth offense and so on. But the importance, I think, of this is the other piece, and that is the 24/7 program. And what that is essentially is that people, once those few days are served, after that they're on probation if they've been convicted. And during that time, they have to be part of this 24/7 program, which means twice a day they will have to go in during that probationary period, and they can have a restricted driver's license if they need one to get to work. And, I know what our state is like. We need to drive. People need to get places. And the dilemma has always been, what do you do with someone that's been convicted of drunk driving and, they live in a rural area or they need to drive to work, and it's just the nature of our state. And I think this really is the solution. They would have to come in twice a day and blow a breath test, and they would have to blow will clean, that they're not doing any drinking in order to be able to drive. And so, what happens now is we restrict things, we revoke licenses, suspend licenses and all that, but people drive anyway. And so this is a way, I think, that really gets at the meat of the issue and hopefully will help make a difference. So those are the basics. There are other details, but and one other thing I think that's important also, when someone is picked up for drunk driving now, they can refuse a blood test if they want to, and there are some penalties for that and so on. And there's been a dilemma of what do we do about that. In South Dakota, they have taken the stance to say that if you refuse a blood test when you're pulled over for DUI, they can physically take one. I mean, they can wrestle you to the ground and stick a needle in your arm and take a blood test. We looked at that and said, encouraging wrestling matches on the prairie between law enforcement folks and drunk drivers is probably not the best idea in the world. So we said, instead, it's a better idea to change it so that you can still refuse. We don't want to, force anybody to give blood if they don't want to. But if you refuse, the penalty is the same as if you tested over the limit. So there's really no advantage to refusing. The only hope would be if you've been drinking and you're stopped and you're not sure if you're over the limit or not, would be to go ahead and give your blood, give a test, and and see and take your chances. So it's actually to your advantage to consent to that, but it's still up to you whether or not to. So those are the basics of the bill as it's laid out now.
855-200-1776. Email Rob at sayanythingblog.com if you have any questions about this for Representative Koppelman. It seems a lot of times, and I've been sort of watching because obviously we got a lot of attention on some very tragic DUI situations over the last year or so. In the media, and it seems what worries me sometimes is that the reaction is always got to get tougher, got to have tougher laws, got to put more people in jail, and I wonder if that's really helping. One thing that jumped out at me from yesterday's press conference was Governor Dalrymple noting that DUI arrests were up 53% since 2001. That speaks to me of a lot more enforcement. We've got more cops out there. We're trying to find more drunk drivers and we're arresting more drunk drivers. The problem is
more of them.
or there's just more of them.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm looking at alcohol-related fatalities and injuries in North Dakota, and I'm seeing not a lot of certainly not a decrease. We're seeing, in fact, a small increase. I think would maybe be in line with the increase in traffic on our roads. So that's either static or a slight increase. So it seems to me increased enforcement isn't really fixing this problem. Is this just more the same? That's a concern I think that I have as I hear some of these proposals about DUI, tougher DUI laws.
Yeah, well, really good points, I think, Rob. And let me make this point because I think it's very important, and I share your skepticism and your concern about what I call.
Sure. You know what? I hate to say this. We took. Can I hold you over and have you answer that in the next segment?
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah. Got to go to a commercial. Rob Port sitting in for the chairman, Scott Hennon. 855-200-1776. If you have any comments or questions for Representative Kim Koppelman talking DUI policy. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. Rob Port sitting in for Scott Hennon, talking about DUI policy. A lot of proposals out there, and one announced yesterday, backed by the governor and Attorney General Wayne Stenjum, was proposed by State Representative Kim Koppelman. And Kim, I'm sorry we didn't have enough time for your answer heading into, I know you know how the radio business works.
Sure.
We got to take those breaks. But you were answering a question I'd had about, if just, tougher laws is always the right approach to this. And you were in the middle of answering that.
Yeah. And I want to make clear that I am very skeptical of knee-jerk reactions. Anytime a tragedy happens, we all say there ought to be a law, and we all grasp for a way to respond that is meaningful. And oftentimes that's well-intentioned but misguided. I mean, I think a great example is this terrible tragedy in Connecticut, and instead of looking at the individual, his mental health, security in schools, all kinds of other things that we could or should be talking about, or other ways to protect people were talking about the instrument, the weapon, and it becomes a gun control debate. And so I'm not that kind of person. I'm not that kind of legislator, and I do worry about those things. And that's not what I did here. What I did instead was look at the whole issue of drinking and driving. And the fact of the matter is it is a huge problem. In North Dakota, we've got some of the worst problems in the nation, not only with drinking and driving. We're, about 150 people a year are dying on our highways, and roughly half of those accidents involve alcohol. And but we are among the worst in the nation in terms of drinking in general. I mean, you talk about underage drinking, binge drinking. You've heard all those statistics as well. And so the question is, what can we do about that? And we also have some of the weakest laws on drunk driving in the nation. But I wasn't one to jump to the conclusion that we needed to toughen them. In fact, I got in some heat for that from some people, because the first thing I said was, we can look at toughening our laws, and maybe we need to do that, but the big thing we need is an attitudinal change, a cultural change, and I still firmly believe that. So if this bill passes, whether it's in its current form or a different form, it's just one piece of the puzzle. And what we have to do is get to the point where, we look at one another, and if we're somewhere together, and I think you've had a couple drinks and you're getting your car keys out, I'm going to say, you know what, Rob, tell you what, buddy, I'll give you a ride home, or I'll call somebody to come pick you up. I mean, that's the kind of place we need to get to in North Dakota. Now, will the law change do that? I think so. I hope so. At least it can be a part of it. Because I think right now the tendency is to say, I'm okay, I'll take my chances. But if you know that the penalty's serious, if you know that if you get stopped, you're actually going to see the inside of a jail cell for a couple of days, I think your attitude might be a little different. And so that can be one piece of the puzzle, I believe, in making a difference.
What happens if we pass this law and we don't see a change? We don't see a difference?
Well, then I think we need to reevaluate and say, if this didn't work, what will? And like I said, I don't think the answer is going crazy and putting people away forever and so on. But I think that, I'm not saying people shouldn't drink. I'm certainly not saying people shouldn't drive, but both of those are restricted activities. And in some cases, licensed or privileged activities. They're not constitutional rights. And the two certainly don't combine. The key is, if you drink, don't get behind the wheel of the car. And, that's where we have to get as a society. So, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you if, predict exactly the differences this might make. But I think we all have to be part of the solution. And I think far more effective than just passing a law will be what we're doing right now. The discussion we can have around this, the second thoughts we can each give, and the attitude changes that we can have, and they make a difference. Rob,
well, I think we agree on that much, and that a lot of the change has to come from us. Joe is on the line and has a call, and I wanted to make sure he had time to ask his question and you had time to answer. Joe from Fargo, go ahead. You're on with Rob Port and State Representative Kim Koppelman.
It's more of a comment. I've been around alcoholics quite a bit over the years, and 60 days in jail they'll laugh at. $750 fine. They'll grow up and grumble, and they may or may not pay it. And this is just me. I guess I'm hardcore. First offense would be $1,000 and 6 months in jail. And that'd be a minimum of 6 months in jail. If I had my way, there'd be no parole boards. Second offense, if they blow over an 8, we'll just skip court, send them to jail for 5 years. The car is impounded. I know that's going to make it hard on their family. Maybe their family should have took their keys from them.
Joe, thanks. Sorry, go ahead.
If it's murder, if someone dies, then that's manslaughter.
Yeah, Joe, thanks for the call. Kim, I think to Joe's point, we do have another proposal coming from State Senator Grichala that is a lot tougher, dramatic increase in the fines and jail time for all levels of offenders in this law. Yours doesn't go that far. What's your reasoning in not going that far with your proposal?
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I talk with law enforcement people, with prosecutors, with judges, with obviously the Attorney General, the Governor's Office, folks at the DOT, Highway Patrol, and so on about this, because I wanted to find out, the lay of the land with the folks that deal with it every day and what their thoughts are. I mean, this is not about beating our chest and saying, I'm tougher than you. This is about looking for real solutions. And actually, Representative Grishella was at the press conference yesterday, and I didn't get a chance to talk with him. He had left. We both got visiting with other people afterwards, and he left before we could. But I understand from a quote in the media that he said he thinks this bill will pass. So, I'd welcome his support. I don't think the key is, who can one-upsmanship or who can appear tougher than somebody else. It's a question of, what works. And the other thing is there are ranges. We talked about the minimums here, but even under, if you look at Class B misdemeanor, Class A misdemeanor, Class C felony, which would be the 1, 2, 3 upgrades in these offenses, on the high side, the maximum side for those three, maximum sentence 30 days, 1 year, and 5 years, respectively. So, we are allowing our court system the discretion where if a judge says, hey, this is serious stuff, and the fines are $750, $1,500, $2,000, then that could change during the session as well. But I think there is some leeway there for judges to do
I agree. We have one more caller I want to sneak in here before we get to the end. Darren, you're on with Rob Port and Representative Kim Koppelman. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi. I was wondering. I just joined the program, so maybe you already said this, but isn't it true that in North Dakota, if you have some DUIs, it's not permanently on your record, and after a while it'll go away?
Well, what is true, Darren, is that felony can do that. If you have a felony conviction, which is, after you have had a series of DUIs, after you're a repeat offender, after you keep your nose clean for a number of years, that can go away. Under this bill, that's another thing that we're proposing a change for. Once you're a felon, you're always a felon under this bill. And right now, you don't get to a felony until your fourth offense. In this bill, it would happen at your third offense.
Does that answer your question, Darren?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks for the call. Appreciate it, Darren. Representative Koppelman, obviously, there's a lot of questions about this,
Sure.
and I think a lot of people, obviously a debate we need to have. So, looking forward to seeing that unfold in the session. And thank you so much for your time answering questions today.
Sounds good. You're welcome, Rob. Good to be with you.
Sure. State Representative Kim Koppelman. I'm Rob Port, sitting in for the chairman, Scott Hennon. Coming up next, going to talk with some higher ed watchdogs. They watch over free speech on campuses and didn't have some great things to say about free speech policies on two of North Dakota's campuses. Stay tuned for that.